Ja, wir setzen heute unsere Reihe fort, das Bild hinter dem Bild, die Reihe, die wir zusammen mit der UDK organisieren, planen, entwickelt haben. Und ich möchte hier insbesondere der UDK danken für die wunderbare Kooperation. Gleichzeitig läuft noch ein anderes UDK-Projekt sozusagen in Competition next door. Wir haben zwei Kooperationen mit der UDK, die beide sehr erfolgreich laufen. Ich möchte mich auch sehr bedanken bei den Kuratoren des Projekts Binja Verli und Andreas Schmidt, die heute Abend bei uns sind und gleich die Künstler einführen. Especially welcome to our Chinese guest. Thank you very much for coming and accepting our invitation. No reaction by the audience. Ja, ich denke, dieses Thema Medien, digitale Veränderungen der Kultur ist ein zentrales Thema, nicht nur in Europa, natürlich auch in China. Speziell im politisch-gesellschaftlichen Bereich treffen immer wieder Nachrichten ein aus China, wie zum Beispiel, dass Google zensiert wird, dass die chinesische Regierung Angst hat, dass der arabische Frühling überschlägt nach China. Also die Rolle der Netzwerke, der digitalen Netzwerke spielen ganz offensichtlich politisch, sozial eine große Rolle in China und doch wissen wir sehr wenig. Teilweise hat das natürlich auch mit der Sprache zu tun, dass wir hier sehr schwierig in diese Netzwerke uns einklicken können, weil wir einfach nicht der Sprache mächtig sind. Aber wie wir alle wissen, ist das die Frage von Surveillance nicht nur eine Problem in China, sondern auch in unserer Welt und Obamas Besuch erinnerte uns ja auch an dieses. Also wir sprechen, wenn wir über Probleme in China in diesem Kontext sprechen, nicht nur über China, sondern generell, wie die digitalen Medien unsere Welt verändern, unsere eigene Gesellschaft, politische Abläufe, soziale Prozesse, wie sie organisiert werden. Und ich bin froh, dass wir einige der zentralen Akteure, was die Netzkultur in China anbetrifft, bei uns haben. Und die werden jetzt heute Abend vorgestellt von den beiden Kuratoren. Vielen Dank.
So I welcome to everybody here to this third panel discussion within the series The Hidden Images about the situation of arts in China. As you remark, I'm now changing to the language towards English because our panel discussion will be in English today. And yes, I just say some words about the series. It's a 1 year-long series of talks, debates, and artist workshops on contemporary art in China, which is designed to show the many different aspects of the turbulent art scene in China and giving insights into the rapid developments in China's most recent art history. Our last panel in April was dedicated to the public sphere in China, and today we will discuss a related issue, the social media and the media arts in China, future under construction, social media and media art in China. And again, I would like to welcome our participants here, Zhenhua, curator. He will moderate the discussion today. Then blogger Isaac Mao from Shanghai. And artist Hito Steyerl based in Berlin. And artist Zhang Peili from Hangzhou. And Gisela Reinhold, she will translate Zhang Peili's Chinese into English and the other way around. And now we would like to introduce shortly everybody with some words. So I start with Zhenhua. He's curator and producer and multimedia artist living in Beijing, Shanghai, and Zürich. And he's a leading person in the contemporary art field in China and has worked in the contemporary art scene since 1996. He promoted Chinese contemporary art in an international art context and also international art in China. And Li Zhenhua is especially engaged in new media art field, and he has participated in numerous new media art symposiums and has curated exhibitions for galleries and museums worldwide, including the ZKM Karlsruhe, the Walker Art Center, and the Guangzhou Museum. He is also editor of numerous art publications and founder of Laboratory Art Beijing, an online platform for sharing and building constructive ideas. And in 2011, Li Zhenhua curated the retrospective exhibition of our today's guest, Zhang Peili, in the Mingsheng Museum in Shanghai. So now to Isaac Mao. He is a blogger and a software architect and a social media researcher based in Shanghai and in Hong Kong and Beijing. And Isaac is one of the most well-known bloggers in China, and he is also the organizer of the first Chinese blogger conferences. The first one took place in Shanghai in 2005. And in 2008, his fight for a free media and freedom of speech resulted in an open letter to Google. And in 2009, Isaac was co-curator of the Ars Electronica Symposium in Linz. And he is also a regular keynote speaker in many global conferences about internet cultural events such as Wikimania. He participated in Transmediale here and last year in Republika in Berlin. And yes, and something more, Isaac Mao coined this term of sharism, which is, and he actually is finishing his book about this philosophy of sharism, and we might get some insights today, probably. Yeah, thank you. So I give the word to Andreas.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming. I introduce very shortly Hito Steyerl, documentary filmmaker and author, and also, I think, philosopher, situated in Berlin. She currently serves as a professor for media arts at the University of Arts Berlin, UDK Berlin. She studied cinematography and documentary filmmaking at the Academy of Visual Arts, Tokyo, and at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. And she also studied television and film at the Munich Academy of Television. She published filmic and written essays centered around questions of globalization, urbanism, gender, and social issues. In addition to this solo exhibition, she took part in numerous international national shows, namely in the Documenta 12 in 2007, the Shanghai Biennale 2008, and actually at the 55 Venice Biennale 2013. Thank you for coming. I would like to introduce Zhang Peili. He is an artist based in Hangzhou, and he studied there at the Academy of Fine Arts, the Zhejiang Academy of Fine Arts, and acted as a cornerstone or as a very pregnant figure of the avant-garde movement in Hangzhou during the 80s. He's considered also father of video art in China because of his groundbreaking video works between 1988 and 1992, which gained international reputation. Zhang Peili was the first Chinese experimental artist to have a solo exhibition at the MoMA, New York. He was appointed the first director for the new media art department installed around 2000 at the China Art Academy in Hangzhou. At the moment, he's chief of the OCAT Dependance for Contemporary Art in Shanghai. He also took part in numerous famous exhibitions in China and abroad. For example, already in 1994 in the 45th Venice Biennale. In 2011, as Binja already mentioned, he had a big retrospective show at the Minsheng Art Museum in Shanghai. We are very happy that you are here. Thank you all for coming. And now I give the word to Li Zhenhua. But just allow me one sentence. Tomorrow, Li Zhenhua will be the actor in another event tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock at the UDK. He's talking about a curator on the turn. It's about the position of curator and the changes and the situation at the moment in China as a curator. We go on with a whole series of talks in October, and I'm glad to inform you that on October 16th, Hou Hanru and Huang Yongping as an artist will be our guests here, and I'm very happy that they come, and I hope you all would like to enjoy it too. Thank you very much, and Li Zhenhua.
Thank you for coming, everybody. I think today we have been encounter a situation of the visiting of Mr. Obama, and which is quite, I think it's quite personal in a way of mentioning the whole kind of context of talking about China and social media era and so on, and art in this kind of context and situation. So here I want to very much reflect maybe not too much on China, but on a personal kind of interest and development in their own artistic method and concept and method and attention of being in the moment, working as a artist. So I think here that we share with everybody our kind of personal history and situation for today, which is much more important than telling everybody what China means and what the whole big context should be. I think that's the major point. And also, as we also worked not only in China, but everywhere around the world. So in another context, I think there's a lot of, I would say, during the kind of shifting of context and transitions, that we kind of recognize ourselves in a certain kind of situation that need to be reconquer a particular mind of thinking of who we are and where we come from. So in this sense, I would like to show one artist group's work instead of talking more of the concept of why we're here. But that will be followed, I think, with Zhang Peili's presentation and Isaac Maut's presentation, because I think in depth, these guys are doing very interesting stuff. But the introduction of this talk, I think I want to address it into a international or the actual idea of what truth means or what actually people talk through politicians or through media artists and whatever. So this is a small artist group from America. Sorry. Called So Limited, who made the work in 2008 on the debate of Obama and McCain. So for me, that's very much a particular kind of encounter of how we see artists, what artists can do, and to reflect the situation and where we are.
In each instance, our efforts at isolation have actually accelerated our efforts to get nuclear weapons. That will change when I'm president of the United States. Senator, what about talking? Well, Senator Obama twice said in debates that we would sit down with Ahmadinejad, Chavez, and Raul Castro without preconditions. Our entire Russian approach has to be evaluated because a resurgent and very aggressive Russia is a threat to the peace and stability of the region. Their actions in Georgia were unacceptable. They were unwarranted. And at this point, it is absolutely critical for the next president to make clear that we have to follow through our six-party, the six-point peace. What is coming in here, as you say, national security, and these times is we've got time for one more request to show them. We realize that the real is very important to the world. And we know that these are good, and for the land of the Jewish, we will help that we temporarily leave our industry on which we have.
Yeah, thank you. And think as opening of this discussion, so I want to shift our idea and then shift everybody's mind into this kind of stage. And now, so we come back to the artistic practice, to Zhang Peili.
Okay. Ich glaube, ich brauche hier noch ein bisschen Ton. Okay.
谢谢这个活动的组织者，谢谢主持人，也谢谢大家今天晚上来参加这个活动。
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming here and for taking part in this meeting tonight.
Yeah. 我今天晚上主要要讲的是不同条件的拍摄，那主要是围绕我自己的作品来谈。
Today I want to talk about different situations, different conditions for making films, for shooting, and I want to concentrate in this on my own work.
最早这个我受到邀请要参加这个讨论的时候，这个组织者给我的一个主题就是关于社会媒体和媒体艺术的这个关系。
When I was first invited for this talk, they gave me a topic that the discussion should be about and that I should talk about, and that should be about social media and about media art.
这个主题首先让我想到3个事情，就是一个是1963年南军 Paik 在纽约的街头拍摄教皇。
And when I thought about this topic, 3 things that had happened in the past came to my mind. The first of which is that in 1961, Nam June Paik had filmed the Pope.
实际上那个时候南军 Paik 的这个拍摄只是在艺术的范围里边有一种影响，并没有扩大到整个社会。
And the filming of the Pope by Nam June Paik in 1963 had just an impact on the art world, but it didn't have really an impact on the whole of society.
第二个事情是1991年洛杉矶的骚乱。
The second thing that came to my mind happened in 1991, and that were the riots, the uprisings in Los Angeles.
大家都知道，当时有4个白人警察在打黑人，然后被路边的人用录像机拍下来了。
I think everybody knows what this is about. It was that 4 black men were beaten up, and somebody who stood beside the scene on the street filmed it.
然后后来是在媒体上播放，然后后来引起了越来越大的这个反应，然后。
And this filming had been posted in the media, it had been put on television, and then in the society it had a great impact, and people started protesting, and this led to kind of very big uprisings.
后来在1992年的惠特尼双年展，策展人把这一段录像拿到了这个双年展里边。那么也就是说，本来不是艺术家的人拍了一段录像，然后对社会造成很大的影响。那这个作品到底我们是可以把它界定为什么？是艺术还是非艺术还是什么东西？
And this clip was invited by the Whitney Museum into the biennial, and then it got included into the biennial, and then it had very much impact in the art world. And now the question we could ask is, I mean, when this thing had been filmed, nobody thought of art. It was just a bystander who filmed a scene that happened in the street. But then it was included in a biennial. So what is this shooting? Is it art, or has it been considered as something else?
第3个事情是2011年埃及的茉莉花革命。
The third thing that came to my mind when I heard about this topic for today was the Jasmine Revolution in 2011.
那实际上就是前年的事情。那个时候大家都知道，就是说已经是很多拍摄是用手机，它既可以拍图像照片，又可以拍录像，然后可以利用网络很迅速的这个转发出去、发送出去。
As this happened only 2 years ago, I think everybody knows very well what happened. We know that a lot of filming has been made during the Jasmine Revolution. There were films being made, short video clips, there were photos being taken, they were put onto the net, and they could very quickly be disseminated worldwide.
大家知道，就是说，随着这个技术的发展，这个信息交流越来越快，然后它的影响力越来越大，这个拍摄也显得越来越重要。
And we all know that with the development of technology, you can very fast, very quickly disseminate all kinds of information, and this filming is also becoming a very important part of this.
在我看来，媒体它有2个这个概念，一个是讲的它是一种介质。另外一个是传播信息和这个收集信息和传播信息的一种这个中介。那作为介质来讲，它首先是一个我们讲是一个科学的一个结果，或者说是一个科技的结果。在很多时候它是好像是中性的，但是有的时候我觉得它不是一个纯粹中性的介质。
Media can have you can have 2 different conceptions of media. One is media are just a medium, a product of science. So they gather information and then they disseminate it. And they seem to be neutral, but maybe sometimes they're not as neutral as they seem to be.
我小的时候经常会看，有看过很多遍，有一个动画 叫《半夜鸡叫》。
When I was small, there was a comic and animated film that I've seen very, very many times. It's called The Rooster is Calling at Midnight.
这个故事当然是杜撰的，但是也是很有意思，能够说明媒介的一个作用。
The story in this film is, of course, made up, but I think it's very interesting because it can very well illustrate the role or the function that the media can have, that the medium can have.
这个故事说的是一个地主，他想让帮他干活的那个农民早点起来，天还没亮就起来帮他干活，所以呢，他学鸡叫，学公鸡叫，因为那时候没有钟，所以呢，等公鸡一叫，他就去催他的农民说：“你们可以去干活了。”所以他学公鸡叫，他的公鸡也学他的这个叫，所以他的公鸡是被他控制的，然后他的公鸡又控制了他的这个农民。
The story in this animated film was about a landlord, and normally the peasants who worked for him had to start work when the rooster called, because that's when the sun came up, there was light, it became bright, and they had to start work. And so the landlord wanted to make them work more and harder, so he studied how the rooster called, and then the rooster studied the landlord, and then his rooster actually called a lot earlier than a long time before the sun had really come up and it was bright outside. And so in this way, the peasants who worked for him had to start working much earlier. And so in a way, if you think who's controlling him, first the landlord controlled the rooster, and then the rooster, who called much earlier, controlled the peasants who had to get up for work earlier than the sun, before the sun had really come up.
另外一个东西就是对我们来说也是比较敏感的，是有短波的半导体收音机。因为在我们很早的时候，小的时候，那个时候短波开始有了，然后我们可以用短波来收听国外的这个广播信息。那个时候这个是犯罪的。
Okay, so one thing was the animated film about the rooster. A second thing that when you talk about the media being a medium, that's a very sensitive thing. It's like shortwave radio, the semiconductor and shortwave radio came up, then there started to be shortwaves. And so this enabled people to listen to the radio. And of course, they could also listen to foreign radio stations, which at the time was, of course, considered a crime.
另外一个媒介就是媒体就是手机，今天我们大家都在用的。但是这个手机，我在2005年去 North Korea 北朝鲜，那个时候入境的时候是要手机要交出来的。
Okay, and a third medium I thought of when I thought about media as being considered a medium would be the cell phone, the mobile. Like when I went to North Korea in 2005, I had to hand in my mobile when I entered the country.
从这里边就是我们可以看到控制与被控制的关系。
And this all helped us to understand the relationship between control, to control and being controlled.
许多想控制别人的人，他很害怕这个信息，由于害怕信息，所以他很害怕这个媒体。
And many people who want to control others are very afraid of information, and so they're also afraid of the media that carries this information.
在中国，这个所谓媒体艺术差不多有20年左右的时间。那么在民生美术馆，上海的民生美术馆曾经举办了这个20年这个录像艺术的回顾展。
And media art in China has a history of about 20 years. So the Minsheng Museum in Shanghai held a retrospective looking back on 20 years of Chinese media art.
但是实际上就是说，我们看这个媒体艺术在今天的中国，它具有一种双重性。一方面，它变得越来越主流，很多大学都开始开设这个媒体艺术的课程，也建立了这样的系或者甚至是学院。另外一方面，这个很多大型的重要的展览，也都会有媒体艺术。然后，很多官方的活动，比如说奥运会啊，世博会啊， 媒体艺术在里边也是一种渲染的这个作用。
And if you look at media art in China, we can see that it has kind of an ambiguous character. Like on the one hand, you can see that media art is becoming more and more mainstream. Like for instance, in very many universities, you have classes on media art, on media. You have departments, or you have a whole school for media art. Or also, you have a lot of exhibitions now who go for media art, or who have expositions on media art. And if you have these world-scale events like the Olympics or the World Expo in Shanghai, you can see that they also do use media to have more impact, to have a greater impact worldwide.
这里边就是我还是觉得这个所谓的媒体艺术在中国的主流，它还是一种样式化的这个从样式上被接受，或者从形式上被接受，而真正的就是有一些比较相对有挑战性的或者是敏感的这样的艺术或者艺术品是还是被排斥或者是有很多障碍的。
From my personal feeling, I can say that I feel that in the mainstream of Chinese media art, there's very many formalized thing, or it's a very formalized approach toward media art. And I feel that very many of the maybe very sensitive or very challenging works of art in the media arena are still put aside, or there are a lot of restrictions, or it's very difficult for them to find an audience.
所以实际上存在两种艺术，跟传统艺术是一样的，一个是样式化的艺术，一种是具有这个怎么说呢，一个探索性的艺术。
So, like in all the art scenes, I think you have two different parts in media art also. One is a very formal approach, it's very formalized, and the other one is much more challenging. It's looking, it's searching for things, and not putting so much stress on the formal aspect.
从媒体这个变化到媒体艺术的这段时间看来，我们讲最大的一个变化是这个拍摄手段的变化和传播的途径的变化。这个里边呢，最大的一个标志就是媒体权力的转变。
And if you look at the changes that had happened in the course of time, I think the biggest change in media art is the channels of dissemination, and also the methods to do the filming, or the methods to do the shooting.
在我看来，在今天拍摄就是一个参与的开始，发送或者转发就是一种表态。
In my feeling, filming is the beginning of participation.
下面我给大家看我大概91年完成的一件作品，叫《水池海标准版》。那个作品是一种介入的方式。
And now I want to show you my first work, which I did in 1991, and it's called Water, the Standard Version of the Zihai Dictionary.
不是第一个作品啊，是今天的第一个作品，91年的作品。
今天 It's not my first work, but the first I want to show you today.
这个作品实际上不是我拍的，我是通过很多人的关系，然后是让当时非常有名的一个在中央电视台的播音员来读一段我指定的辞海里边的以水开头的这个段落。
And actually, I mean, I didn't do the filming for this, but it took me very many relations, and I needed very many people to help me, and then I could contact an anchor woman from CCTV, and she reads part of the Zihai dictionary, which is kind of the biggest Chinese dictionary, and all the words starting with water, whatever, waterfall, water, whatever, and she's using a very good pronunciation and reading all these words in the dictionary that have water as a first syllable or as a first part.
搞了完了，我怎么切到图像里边去？那个，刚才说是要用这个。对啊，接到这 folder， 接到好了，就这个。 怎么全拼？全拼怎么可以？
水。一、水。荀子劝学，冰，水为之而含于水。二、泛指水域，如江河湖海，与陆对称。三、水灾。四、五行之一。五、星名。六、官名。左传昭17年，共工事以水纪，故为水师而水名。七、旧时银的成色有高低，以水为平，俗称渭水，如贴水、深水。八、性。水力。一、水流所产生的动力。二、水路运输客货的费用，也称水缴。水人，水乡的居民。水工。一、治水的工程人员。二、船工、水手。
下一个作品是跟现场有关的。那我在我的一些作品里边，这个实际上是没有拍摄的，是利用了摄像头拍了展览现场的那个一些环境，所以就说它是有点像一个怎么说呢？是要完成一个填空一样的观众的活动，那就是被拍摄下来，然后播放出来，它就是我的这个作品当中的一部分。
Okay, the next work is called Live, and it's I had cameras that filmed within the exhibition site, and they filmed like what the audience would be doing, and it was not me really filming, but I installed some cameras, and they were just filming things that happened on the exposition site.
这个作品是那个我用了一个汽车把它烧掉，当然是一个破的汽车了。因为烧掉的汽车让我们可以联想到很多事件的现场，但是在烧的过程，我们讲事前发生的时候是图像或者影像它是缺失的，所以呢，我在汽车上面装了60个针孔的摄像头，来拍摄现场的这个环境和观众。
In the next work, I burned a car. It was, of course, an old car. And because I think that with the act of burning and all the destruction that it brings about, you can associate very many things with this. And then I put a lot of cameras on top. And it's like I created, with pictures, I created something like a real scene in which this burnt car was put.
怎么又到这个地方了？
哪个？
下去，再下去。好，下去。好，这个作品叫漂浮物。
This is called floating object.
这个是我很抱歉没有图像，没有影像，这个只有一张图片。这个也是是这样的。就是先做一个虚拟的一个影像，3维的动画，是做了一些可以飘的这个移动的这些骨头，然后是在展览的现场用了这个摄像头，透过这个窗户拍到窗外的这个环境， 然后把这个那个虚拟的影像和实时的这个影像把它叠加在一起。
Okay, this it's just a picture. I don't have the whole video, but it's two parts. The first part is a virtual image, which I did in 3D, and it has some floating, moving bones in it. And then for the other part, I opened the window of the exhibition hall, and I filmed the real scenery outside the window, and put these two together, the virtual and the real one.
在这个环境里边，因为这个窗户很高，观众是没有办法看到窗外的那个景色，所以唯一的就是他们可以来判断的这个东西，不管是真实的还是这个虚拟的，这个是唯一的一个图像，就是他们愿意相信也好，愿意不相信也好，骨头在空中里面飘。
Okay, and the trick is that the window in the exhibition hall is so high that the audience cannot see the real scenery outside, so they only can see the scenery that I have given them in the picture. And so now it's up to them to decide if what they see is real or if it's fiction, if it's virtual, if the bones are really floating outside, or if this is part of the virtual part, or if it's the real part. So it's also about truth and what you believe to be true.
在我作品当中也用了一些偷拍和监控的拍摄的一个方法。这个里边有2件作品，下面给大家看一下。
I also used some candid camera or hidden camera techniques in my work, and I also used surveillance video. I'll give you to see some of this.
这个作品呢是我在一个工厂，那个服装厂，给每个缝纫机前面的工人头上装了一个监控的摄像头，然后从早上他们上班开始到他们下班，一共拍了8个小时，所以一共是40个这个影像。我把它放在一起，就是呈现这个工厂里边的工人一天的这个动作，他们的所有的活动。
Okay, this is taken in a clothes factory, and I filmed the workers from when they started working in the morning, 8 hours till when they got off. And I had 40 workplaces, and I had a camera installed above every workplace, and so I filmed them for the whole day. When they were working, what they were doing, and I put 40 images together of the 40 workers, and so you could see the whole day what happened, what they were doing in the clothes factory.
下一个是题目叫对话，叫那个问和答。
Okay.
Question
Q&A.
Okay.
Okay, it could be translated as dialogue, but he wants it to be translated as Q&A, questions and answers.
这个作品是用了一个双向的那个摄像机放在一个小的装置盒子里面，然后放在警察局，就是警察和那个被抓的人他们那个对话的那个中间，然后警察是知道这个装置是干什么用的，因为他们每次要打开这个装置，是我托了朋友，然后这个把这个东西放在里边，然后被抓的人是不知道的，所以这个是一段 这个很长，里边有好几个人被抓进去，然后审问，警察和那个被抓的人的对话。
Okay, this is filmed in a police station, as you could see, and it's a camera that can film from two sides. It's put in a box, and it can film the two sides, the police officer who's doing the interrogation and the person who has been arrested. And the police officer, of course, know what's happening because they do this. I had a friend, and then he helped me do this. But the person who's being interrogated does not know about the thing. And I filmed several of these arrested people being interrogated and always filmed both sides.
这个是下面是他的展览的时候装置的这个图片，然后观众是在两个屏幕之间观看图像，然后他不能同时看到两个图像，然后拿着耳机来观看的。我今天要讲的差不多快结束了，就是我是想说，不同的拍摄实际上是一个是想保持语言的一种敏感性，警惕就是说是被主流化，然后另外一个是想对主要是要对环境做出一种不同的环境做出一种反应。
Okay, I come and just there you saw the images in the installation. You had two screens, and the people who watched the two people doing the Q&A could always just see one picture, and then they had to turn around, see the other picture, and via headphones they could hear what they were saying. And this also brings me to the end of my speech, here, and what I wanted to say in the very end is what's written on this chart, which is that under different conditions you can do different filmings, and it's always has very much to do with your surroundings or with the context. So what you're filming, the different methods of filming are also always a result of your surroundings, of your context. And another thing is that you have to think about the language. You have to keep the sensitivity of the language, and you have to strive to stay away from the mainstream. You have to be very watchful not to get into the mainstream. And then he said that non-mainstream art is a sort of existence, and that the non-mainstream character of art either is an attitude, is a certain attitude.
Thank you very much.
Before we have Isaac, I want to give a little kind of add to what Zhang Peili's presentation is. Because for me, he's a very particular man who mentioning about to work really in the medium of art, which is like in the 90s, I think many people concerned about art with politics and with the social issues and this and that. But I think he's one of the particular artists who very much worked continuously in this topic of art and the medium. And I assume that the presentation is very much also followed the topic of Mr. Zhang Peili. I mean, as today, he still works in this way. Which is like he involved with the social and political issues, but still in a very, very artistic way of development. Then I think I want to pick up one word from Zhang Peili. It's called the power of media. Then I want to shift this topic to Isaac. Please.
Open. Hi. It's for waking myself up because it's still in jet lag, and I want to have some sharing easily tonight with the friends here because just 3 years ago I was in this hall as well talking to Transmediale. As my first presentation on my philosophy called Sharism. So it's a very memorable place for me, actually for my future thoughts development, maybe. I'm not an artist, so I won't talk those art language tonight, and maybe you can laugh at me. But I think I want to share you something disruptive to this area because I'm a sneaker to this area. I'm not this industry, I'm not this area, but I want to see that the connections between different sectors. I want people to see that something happening under water, and we need to see through this kind of trend. Maybe we are not really sensing that. So first, today I want to introduce one term called artivism. That's my headline. It's very horrible. Artivism, combination of art and activism. It's something seems like very strong word, to say that why we want to introduce this word. But I will tell you that it's very much a common word in China now. It is always happening on internet every day, on social media, from everyone's mobile devices, tablets, and PC. So this is kind of new things we can discuss tonight. But everything from beginning, because every day, everyone talks to me today about Obama. So I want to share the first picture. I didn't intend it to do this because I don't know. Actually, this guy will be visiting Berlin before I come in here. But this slide, happily, introduce him as the first picture. Anyone here know this picture? Can you raise your hand? Yeah. I guess half of you may pay attention to politics. So this picture actually is very popular to be seen on mainstream media during the, assassination of bin Laden. And it's very popular on the internet as well, on social media. But have you ever seen this? It's much, much more popular than the previous one. On social media, on personal transmissions to each other, between friends, family members. If you didn't see this, you're not a social media guy. I'm joking. We call this kind of thing meme. I want to introduce to art sector this word because it's firstly coined by Richard Dawkins, a British scientist. He defined the word as the gene of culture. Because gene, everyone knows gene. We have gene in our body, every cell, to connect our ancestors to Earth. But meme is another word for culture. And the previous two pictures are all defined as meme because they are not only a single picture, they spread over the internet as a gene, just like the gene copied from one person to millions of persons, immediately or maybe very quick. So meme spreading is the very important feature of our age. But for me, I think meme is important not only because of it's a gene, it's a kind of information package, not only describing something, not only, give us the impressive, thing we see every day, we heard, or maybe we interpret in our way, but also it has a very important, concept behind it, which we call it identity. So the meme won't be easily to be used as the traditional media because the traditional media don't really care about identity. They don't care about audience. They just care about the number, about the coverage. But the meme, actually, they must have something started with a person, spread over the network, social network, via some other identifiable persons. So meme, from my eye, is a kind of soap of culture. From many me's. Meme. Okay. But every day we see torrents of memes spread over the internet. We don't really get all of them, but it's spread over some paths to cut through different kinds of people, different kinds of groups. But definitely, I see that just like the pictures, Obama pictures, it definitely will spread over the path to a group of destination, like the traditional media. It has the coverage, but it's different. It's not the broadcasting. It's a kind of, like swimming over different identities because people trust this kind of information. It's useful, valuable, funny, or whatever. So they try to share this meme to his or her social network. This is very important because if you want to share, it's a kind of thing that spread over or possible to spread over. This is very important. And we see many people know the word called RT. Maybe artists don't know it too much, but it's very similar to art, right? What is RT? Anyone knows RT here? Raise your hand. Not so many people use Twitter here, I can judge. But if you use Twitter for years, or as a new user, whatever, you know RT is it's the short form for retweeting. You can link the meme and RT together, then you know that, okay, I create a meme from my dream. I wake up and I use my mobile phone, whatever. I type in my meme, okay, something happened, and then I post to my social network. Someone else, oh, this is very interesting topic, a good picture, whatever. He or she will RT it. Then his social network will see the original creator's work. This just happened, could be just in seconds. Let's imagine with the 6 degrees of separation world, supposedly one meme could spread over the world, theoretically, to all the people around the world. We are 6 times of RT, right? This is not hard to explain. You can understand. But luckily, I'm the first person invented RT, back to 5 years ago. So this is one Chinese tweet is a meme. Another one is English tweet. First time I use RT because it's short form. It's very small, short language that can help people to understand, okay, there is someone you can retweet his message to your social network. So if you keep retweeting, supposedly you can see several RTs together, and you can see the path from one person to another person to another person. So we see that how social media can become so pervasive today because we need to invent it, or we need to find some very neat or single format that can help us to spread over. That's the power per individual, because it's supposed that everyone with the social network identity has the potential to be RT'd to other corner of the world. It's possible, because RT has many transformed format later, MT, modified tweet, or TR, translated, retweet, etc. People invented. So just several days of this invention of this short format, the RT was used very, very quickly by all the people, by all the languages. It's very easy to be understood. So this is social media. We see from this very small motive only 4 persons, they have mutual connections to each other, or maybe not directed connections. Maybe I follow you, but you didn't follow me. It doesn't matter, because I see your meme someday, interesting things. I can retweet to my social network, or someday via another person, my information, my meme could be retweeted by you, because you don't really need to follow me, but things could be possible. This is the potential of everything. The creativity can be connected, just like the Creative Commons movement. Many people know that because the movement tried to call people to open up their artwork, their creativity, to share with the people, whatever they are. If you open up with the Creative Commons license, other people can reuse your stuff and remix it. RT is the short form for text in format of remixing. But there are so many potential we can reuse this language. Let's go back to focus to one small island of the world. It's called China. We have a lot of social media, web services now. They are different from the world, not only for language, but also for the culture. However, all of those social media from the inner circle, you see their counterparts of international social media, right? So they're not invented by Chinese. I have to say that. We call them C2C, copy to China. And this kind of copy to China copycats, they have very strong survival environment in China because of the government has set very strong censorship, the cage in China. So those international counterparts, they are not easy to enter China market. And the local players can, grow up. Not so easily, but at least very, advantage taken. So this is the very brief story in China's social media landscape. And now we have 500 million people, internet users in China, the largest population, but still a small island because people in China, they're trying to use internet for their education, for their enlightenment. Why I say that? Because people in China, for decades of years, they were, limited to the mainstream media, the official mainstream media, and they have the only very, very unique languages, they can use. But the internet, just for those social media web services, although I damn some of them, are very evil, but I think they have very strong function to enlightening Chinese people. Because with this power, the power of RT, power of meme, they are universal. They are not unique to Chinese or unique to US, unique to European. They are applicable to everyone, every person with the humanity. So this is very strongly underlying theory that we can apply to Chinese internet social media as well. Let me show you some picture. Everyone knows this picture, right? Here. Anyone doesn't know this picture? Okay. Chinese. This picture is very, of course, it's very historical from different angles, actually. You know that. Many young Chinese people, they don't know this picture back to 5 years ago. Why? Because in China, the internet, even the Web 1.0 age, is not allowed to post this kind of information because the mainstream portal websites, they have very strong self-censorship system to block this kind of information. It's easy to do it. The mainstream, you can never think about they are posting this kind of information, right? But after about less than 4 years of social media development, many people, young people, they know this. Although they have different perceptions about this picture, at least they know this event happened, not like before. Many people think this thing never happened. So people create different things. This is not so serious, right? But it's still telling us some serious things. And this one, I track the time. I show them along the timeline. Try to follow me. This is a creation from the previous creation. How I tell that? Actually, I don't know. I track the timeline. I see that, this meme spread over, last meme. And then we see another creation pop up from a grassroots creator. I don't know who he is. He's my artist in my heart. It's very creative. And then this pop up this year because Hong Kong introduced this big duck into Victoria Bay. And many people love this duck. And another artist, I don't know his name yet. I quote his picture today illegally. actually. But people understand something from another way, another direction. I think it's creativity as well. Also disruptive. Also interesting. And you know this guy as well. I don't want to introduce him, okay? Because I think he has a lot of complex interpretations here and there. He created a lot of things, I don't want to show. Because I have my understanding of him as well. But today I want to tell you that he is not, what's his name? He's not only himself, because he is trying to use the internet memes and grassroots powers very well. At the same time, people, based on his kind of epic, to create a lot of things in their ways. So it's not he himself playing the game. Many people doing this. So see, some people create this during this guy was detained 2 years ago. And this is the first creation I tracked, our team using the data mining technology to do it. So the Chinese were saying, giving us back every way. This is the second creation from the previous one. You see, it's changing. I know the guy's name, but I think it's okay, but not so creative. And this another guy is a middle school student. He copied the last one to show his friends of this. And he was warned by the police. This is the story happened in China. How about this? Is this cooler? I think so. It's not ending. I think this is more creative and it can be more symbolic. Can be used in other kind of formats. So you can print it on T-shirt, in other stickers, whatever. You can use. I don't know. I'm not an artist. How about this? Small abstract, right? With something, not fit for children. And people putting more creativities. They're not artists, but they're only grassroots, per individuals, but they can do these kind of things. And this is the most favorite creation by me. I think it's very much reflected the creations exploding in China. This is only a piece of cutting, snapshot of everything. I just want to horrify you with this guy's name. So that I use this case. But as you can see, if you track Chinese internet, social media today, you see many memes started from one person. Maybe it's a human rights abuse. Maybe it's another interesting. Maybe it's a very, very corrupted thing, from officials. They spread over with creations, and only something very serious. Okay. So let's use another case that Deng Xiaoping said, we need to develop our country, by touching the stones in river, step by step. It's a good saying that we do trials, experiments, but after 30 years of reform and openness, China government still saying we need to go through the river by touching the stone. So many internet users, they don't like this saying. It's a cliche, of course, but they use different formats to try to joke that it's right over to this picture actually touched roughly 2 million hits from internet. So you see those Chinese authorities still touching the stones everywhere in the river and let people to touch them. And this is more creative because the stone becomes something else. The officials call people to touch stone and stop. I found something I think is more interesting. And this Chinese reading that is called Chinese characteristic, etc. But they don't use the democracy bridge or way to reach another side. And this is more interesting, I tell you. This is most recent creation from internet users. Is definitely a craft work from amateur, user. But it's very interesting because some people walking over the bridge, but we are still touching the stone, finding the stone. We don't want to walk over that. Where it came from? This order, reversed. Actually, the order should be this one and this one. So you see these pictures happened weeks ago when Xi and Obama met. Again, Obama. I hate this name. And for the prism. Okay, so many people, all these pictures, I'm sure if you search Weibo or Weixin, whatever, you won't see them easily because they will keep deleting from the social media. But they ever survive for 30 seconds, for 2 minutes, for 1 week, whatever, they spread over. They have the time window to be arted. And then this. So you know the path of creation. And then this is the 2 days creation from a user I know as well. Let's keep going. I don't tell this story. I want to say something about the meanings of social media, new media. The social media is kind of new media, but it links with many kind of creation tools, computing tools, the daily life tools, including the devices for children, for senior people. But many people like commerce, business, they well use the meanings like Coca-Cola. They recently they produce many products of their new bottles with Chinese internet buzzing words. So everyone, those young people, you said, they rush to the shop to say, I want this bottle, because I think I like this buzzword, this kind of meme, So it can be very valuable for business, right? But I'm interested in the collective intelligence of people, like the ants tribe. Every ant is small, it's very weak, seems not so intelligent, but if they transfer information to each other, they touch and conduct those chemical signals to each other, the whole tribe becomes intelligent. So I want to see that how the social media, how the creativities, including our professional artists, can participate in this kind of transformation of a society from a very traditional, old-fashioned community into an intelligent community, what I call social brain. We want people to be well connected, not only to share, what I call shareism, but also they can help each other to build up some higher level of intelligence. So the creativity, including those artists, very, very famous artists in China emerged in the past 10 years. I think the grassroots power cannot be ignored. Everyone can be artist. Everyone can participate in this artivism. So I want to share something today with you guys, and I try to call more people to pay attention to the connectivities of people instead of those how many millions of users in there, because it's still in very early stage. We need more innovative things, and we hope that these kind of things can happen. Thank you.
So now, I think you see a woman working to the stage is one of our major speakers today as well. So I want Hito comment on the two artists' presentation, or two people's presentation, and thank you.
So, good evening. Thanks a lot for these wonderful presentations. I was very happy to be introduced to these two wonderful bodies of work. So now, when I was invited, I tried to politely make clear that I have no knowledge whatsoever of the topic under discussion. So I think it falls to me to ask very stupid questions today. And I didn't know actually the presentations, so I'm trying to respond by showing a clip of 10 minutes from my own work, which I have to find first. So I will do that, but in the meantime, I would like to ask one question to whoever would like to respond to it, because there is one thing which has really intrigued and troubled me, or not troubled me, I mean interested me over the past few days, which was the fact that the so-called whistleblower, in the NSA case called Edward Snowden, who disclosed the wholesale surveillance of the Western internet recently in The Guardian, chose to take refuge in Hong Kong. This was, for very obvious reasons, a very interesting choice to me, since, of course, in the West, many people believe that one of the states, say besides Iran and so on, where the internet is very much monitored, would be China. Now, it would be very interesting to me if our guests could sort of analyze and contextualize not only this choice and what it means to them, perhaps, but also talk a bit about reactions in Hong Kong, where, as far as I know, there have been shows of support, for Edward Snowden not to be extradited to the US. So maybe you would like to answer to this question while I'm trying to find my Dropbox to show my video response. I will just disconnect it in order not to confuse you. Thanks.
Actually, that was a question we discussed last night with Isaac. But I think that very much related to the topic for today, and also very much related to the actual situation. I have to say, but not only this guy addressed us this kind of attention, but also we have to reflect also on the early kind of guy, Julian Assange, who creating this kind of WikiLeaks situation. So I think I would like to ask maybe Isaac to respond to what's happening online, really, like what people kind of react to this kind of situation in Hong Kong, because Isaac actually also based in Hong Kong in a way.
Again, Obama. So, of course, Chinese internet users, if we talk about Snowden issue, this PRISM issue, and the Snowden's leaks in the past several weeks, it's very much developing. There is very much developing path as well on China's social media and internet, but it's a kind of too complex for Chinese internet users, frankly speaking, because they need to understand the situation of U.S. system, how this kind of internet surveillance is working, because basically, from my understanding in the past several years defending the internet freedom, I know that there are many civil organizations in U.S. They're working as the watchdog, safeguard to civil rights of internet freedom. So like EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they keep tracking the government's behaviors, especially bad behaviors, tracking people's information and taking their privacy, etc. And so actually it's not one person's heroic story. But Chinese people, there are definitely two groups. One group I call blue netizen, another is called red netizen. Blue red netizen, they know more information because they can circumvent the censorship system we call Great Firewall. We call fanqiang, scaling the wall. So they know more information, like living in the free internet countries. Although there are no free internet countries from this case, after this case, we know that the internet freedom is still a long way to struggle to define. And the U.S., they cannot really, the government, because they are doing something always intended to violate the civil rights of freedom, privacy, etc. We definitely need more watchdogs. We definitely need more legal, constructions to this kind of defending in the future. But now people, because this case is now over, and we know that the Snowden's, the case engaged in many complex because the guy is now in Hong Kong and is part of China, theoretically. If he had some connections with China authority, these things could become very more complex, more than civil rights defending. But basically, the government of U.S. need to clarify the thing, need to, seek public transparency for, further, streamline of this resolving. Otherwise, I think that not only U.S. people, but also those people from other countries, they regarded this as a very bad practice, especially in China, because the government tried to impose more and more censoring and surveillance practices to Chinese people, and they use U.S. case as a very good case, to resemble whatever, although it's much more serious there. Yeah.
So, if I may ask again, is it also seen as a sort of backstabbing to people defending freedom of information in China? Of undermining the case of people trying to make the case for internet or information freedom in China?
Oh yes, I think the reaction, the later reaction from U.S. government could be very critical to the position of internet freedom, at the U.S. position on internet freedom realm, the landscape, and it could become very, very weak if they, lead to the wrong direction.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit more about that, because certainly his information in China, we can receive from this WeChat Tengxun, like QQ News, Transcend News, that Snowden is denied that to sell any particular information to China, and but that's, for me, that's a very particular and interesting signal of what actually going to happen after. It's like he's like a little bomb or little virus, and what this kind of virus going to attack what, and also that requires also this kind of security issues of whether maybe that's going to trigger something more, in the future, that in the name of protecting our privacy. And also, if we really gave some kind of information out, then whether this is the news or this is some kind of thing we know, or this is some kind of truth that we all can predict, but we just pretend we don't know. So I think, that's a certain issue that's also very much, as I addressed it, related to WikiLeaks. There was a lot of this kind of debate, but the only problem is and that's also a recall of so-called, this kind of patriot and nationalism kind of ideology, and also the word traitor has become popular again. Yeah.
So, I found my file, but actually I don't want to spam you, with unrelated things. I'm sure you have many questions also to the, issues that were already discussed on the podium. If not, I'm going to happily spam you, but please, yeah? So, okay. Well, maybe to relate it a little bit to the content of the discussion, I feel that, forever it's been clear that the internet or digital media as such have, completely failed on their promise of the utopian idea that they would enable some sort of free-flowing universal conversation, discussion and exchange. That much has been clear for a long time, that what we used to see as a shiny surface of free-flowing, basically information about consumer goods, was hiding the fact that the web for many years actually has been some sort of fiefdom of competing corporate monopolies, but also of states which heavily fractured, and segregated basically this surface. So in a sense, I think that the so-called universal promise of the web has been replaced by a universal reality of repression and of surveillance. And in fact, this is quite good news, I think, because it's probably the first thing that web users share globally now. No? I mean, everyone can agree on that from this perspective or from that one. People are being surveilled, but people also resist, no, in different ways to being branded as terrorists, for example, for using Twitter, as, happened a few days ago in Turkey and so on. So anyway, this is a short video response to the talks of my two predecessors, which tries to imagine some sort of response to this situation of surveillance. And I'm just going to show you a clip. It's called How Not to Be Seen, and it's an educational film about how to become invisible in a situation of over-mediatization. And I hope...
A fucking didactic educational MOV file. Lesson 1. There are 4 ways to make something invisible for a camera. To hide. To remove. To go off screen. To disappear. This is a resolution target. It measures the visibility of a picture. This is a resolution target. It measures the resolution of the world as a picture. Resolution determines visibility. Whatever is not captured by resolution is invisible. How not to be seen. Lesson 2. There are 7 ways of making something invisible in plain sight. Pretend you are not there. Hide in plain sight. To scroll. To wipe. To erase. To shrink. To take a picture.
Today most important things want to remain invisible. Love is invisible. War is invisible. Capital is invisible.
In the 1950s and 60s, the US Air Force installed grayscales and resolution targets in the California desert to calibrate aerial photographs and videos. Resolution determines visibility. It calibrates the world as a picture. How not to be seen. Lesson 3. There are 7 ways of becoming a picture. To camouflage. To conceal. To cloak. To mask. To be painted. To disguise. To mimicry. To key. Around 2000, a new standard for resolution targets is introduced. This is a pixel-based resolution chart. It serves to shoot pixels. In 1996, photographic resolution in the area is about 12 meters per pixel. Today it is 1 foot. To become invisible, one has to become smaller or equal to 1 pixel. How not to be seen. Lesson 4. There are 13 ways of becoming invisible by disappearing. Living in a gated community. Living in a military zone. Being in an airport, factory or museum. Owning an anti-paparazzi handbag. Being fitted with an invisibility cloak. Being a superhero. Being female and over 50. Surfing the dark web. Being a dead pixel. Being a Wi-Fi signal moving through human bodies. Being undocumented or poor. Being spam caught by a filter. Being a disappeared person as an enemy of the state. Eliminated. Liquidated. And then dissimulated.
In the decades of the digital revolution, 170,000 people disappear. Disappeared people are annihilated, eliminated, eradicated, deleted, dispensed with, filtered, processed, selected, separated, wiped out. Invisible people retreat into 3D animations. They hold the vectors of the mesh and keep the picture together. They re-emerge as pixels. They merge into a world made of images.
There's a few more chapters, but you see what I mean.
I think we're kind of short in time. I would like to give the chance to the audience. Maybe you guys have some question to our three major speakers. Anybody? Oh, I don't know. It's in the back, but excuse me.
To me, of course. For international things, I cannot really reflect too much on the evilness. But if we try to compare, I think I like Twitter more, the concrete answer. But it's very hard. Firstly, we need to prevent government. The second thing is that we need to prevent business from stealing our privacy, a lot of things. But Twitter, in some ways, I think they help some cases, help us to understand their stance of protecting people, like two cases in California that the court tried to order Twitter to give the IP address to users, etc., or shut down the WikiLeaks account in a way, but Twitter rejected. By comparison, Facebook, I think they're always retreating from, protecting people's privacy, etc. And many activism groups' accounts were removed, deleted, maybe not from orders from different authority, but definitely Facebook itself has some kind of abuse of this kind of rights. So it's a comparison. Leave you to judge.
Yeah. Anyone?
Thanks for all of the presentation. It's amazing, and this question goes to Ms. Hito and Mr. Isaac, and potentially to all of you. What do you think about the decision to become an artist or not to become an artist, that instead to become an activist? This decision, if there's anything goes with the emergency situation, that since Isaac is living in like so-called conflict zone, like China and in Hong Kong, that encounter with China surveillance and also from U.S. like directly, and that the artist Ms. Hito lived in a kind of like at this so-called there's more free space in in Germany that enable like at least as far as I know that this video is shown in Venice Biennale, and also like for supplement is also in a free zone that not in the venue of Arsenale, but in a like kind of in outer space that kind of have more free spaces. That what do you think about the artistic space that enable you to approach more ethical and theoretical thing, and that or like to be an activist that you have to like, since you got like kind of emergency situation have to resolve or to attack with, so that you choose not to be an artist.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, but this is really just a footnote, no? I was most surprised in Mr. Zhang's presentation that actually media art seems to be much more accepted, let's say, as an art form in China generally than in my university. I mean, this is something I really have to emphasize, no? But I mean, for your other question, I think there's two contradictory responses, one which is pragmatic and one which is more general. The pragmatic one is that in many cases activists have managed to sort of retreat under the banner of artists giving some limited protection for a certain time, which is, in my view, one of the few reasons art can be useful, no? So pragmatically, sometimes there is some meaning to it. The more general is that most interesting art is not labeled art, no? I mean, just whatever it's called doesn't matter, no? But this is really, I think, especially in the digital arts and media, a very common condition that whatever is emergent, interesting, and really exciting, also, especially in the crossover with political movements and so on, is not accepted as art. This should be a distinction, no? Not anything else.
I just want to pick one part of this question. Maybe I'm wrong. Please correct me, because I think I understand the artists, came from two ways. One is from the educational system. We educate people to be artists in a way, and another one I think is from the like you said, maybe from pragmatic, practices. They. Now, some people, they are not before, maybe today, it's more possible that people, they become artists, from their digital creations. Or suddenly they become artists. Like one guy I know in China, he's not an artist at all. Before, he was accompanying to his wife to study in Europe. And then just like 3 years ago, he started to publish one comic online, and cannot stop because every day things, going on, and he's create more and more and more. I really think that some curators can do an exhibition for him. Many of his works very popular in China. He suddenly become an artist. Although he's not the traditional ivory tower, trained. So I think the border is becoming blurring. People moved from this area to another area, and the internet gave people all kinds of tools. And now we have the spreading power as well. So the creation from one person could be suddenly become very much relevant to our social developments. This kind of engagement could be out of everyone's expectation from the traditional trajectory. So I myself, I chase this kind of creation more because it's unlimited creativity, emerging. You don't really know, who is from the elite school and then become the most famous artist, whatever. The traditional path. Yeah.
Peili. No, I think Peili should answer this question too. 你要回答一下这个问题。
I'd like to precisely ask Zhang Peili a question.
Yeah. 我觉得现在从这个，其实我刚才举的这个3个事情的例子，91年那个就是洛杉矶骚乱那个事情开始，就是这个是一直以来都有的问题，就是说什么是艺术家。当然有一些人他可能是他自己界定自己，他一直在做一件事情，然后他认为这个是艺术，但是往往有的时候就是说。你做的事情最后怎么来界定，不是由他本人可以来决定的。我觉得现在有很多，特别是到现在网络时代，在一个这个社会媒体的这么一个时代，就是这个标准是完全是开放的。所以我们现在看，就是说，其实像南京派克那个时代的这种。仅仅限制在一个艺术的范围里边的影响力，这个时代也已经过去了。所以一件作品就是说，它是可能是你是不是艺术家，或者说你是不是一件有影响力的作品，这个可能是一个很复杂的一件事情。
Well, maybe I go back to the LA riots I talked about when I started my speech, and because this is a good example to kind of think about what is an artist or what is considered to be a work of art, and like it's like in the past maybe some people could decide what is art and what is not art, or there was a definition, and very often it was not yourself who decided if what you're doing is art, but it was different people, other people who defined that what you're doing is art. And I think that now, having the internet and the social networks and all this stuff, we have open standards. It's not as defined as it used to be before. This is art and this is not art. It's kind of like we live in a world of open standards, and everything has become much more complicated. Like in the times of Nam June Paik, you had a framework or you had paradigms that could decide if something is art or not. But this is not the case any longer. So now, if something has a very big impact, it probably could be considered art, but it has become much more complicated now.
保尔斯说过，人人都是艺术家。我想这个是一个理想，是一个乌托邦。但是实际上就是说，我在想，就是首先一个就是一个看这个人的参与的这种参与度吧。他如果没有参与度的话，我想就是如果是他认为是艺术，但是是自娱自乐的，他没有一个就是说话的这种欲望，或者说是参与的欲望。那我想就是说，这个很难说是一个艺术家。然后我是觉得，就是以前的我们概念艺术家是一小撮，就是一帮这种在玩那种怪怪的这些事情的人，但现在可能不是。你可能我是觉得很有可能就是像他这样，他说他不是艺术家，但是我认为他可能他的影响力比一个自称为艺术家的人要大得多。所以我们也可以从另外一个角度说，他也是艺术家。
Okay, well, Boyce said that everybody is an artist, which is certainly the ideal. And what I think is when you look at somebody and try to decide if he's an artist or not, the degree of participation is very important. Like if somebody's doing something just for fun, for himself, to be happy with it himself, and there's no desire of participation, I think it's very hard to say that he's an artist. And like before, maybe we thought that very strange or very weird things could be considered art, but I don't know. I think like Isaac, he says he's not an artist, but I think if what you're doing has very great influence, impacts a lot of other people. If you look at Isaac, for example, from this angle, you would have to say that he's an artist.
Please.
My question has been answered already, but I want to mention my question I wanted to ask Zhang Peili has been just answered, because he made this distinction between formal kind of formalist artists and real artists in his presentation. But I want to mention one thing. that the video we have seen this afternoon or this evening here is shown in this building for the second time. It was shown in the China Avant-Garde show in 1992 in this building. 93. And because Zhang Peili at that time took part in this very important exhibition which was shown in this building. Just to for the record, China Avant-Garde.
Thank you very much. And last question. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So who gonna? I don't know. Yeah.
Supporting in what way is it supporting, and is this true, and yeah, like I want more answers to this question, I guess. Did you hear the first part? Why media art is the first experimental art form to be supported by the state in China?
Maybe I try to give a little information as a background of how media art become a kind of form supported by the experimental artist crowd and also the government. Because I think as another curator who also been presented several times in Hakavi, Qiu Zhijie, started the video art show in 1996, was mentioning, then I had a dialogue with him. He was talking about why choosing, for example, video art. Because it is less kind of concern as a political or any kind of hidden political practice, which is I don't know, which is I think it's a very kind of difficult question whether that represents that or not. And then secondly, I think there's a requirement from artists which is very strong as well, that artists need a kind of updated situation with using the new coming medium in their work, and also through the practice. And I think through the practice, there's a lot of this, I would say, methodology or concept being kind of developed. Then that matches another kind of international situation of the 1960s, because of the creative industry from England are giving a high kind of impact to the Chinese government. So then from this kind of aspect that people easily treat this kind of art as kind of a representative kind of art for the Chinese new situation. That's how I understand it. Maybe Isaac, you want to add more?
No, I think I don't know how to comment this question.
Then also with the recent show I did, it's also called Art After Social Media Era. It's in Shanghai. It's a group international artists stuff. Then I think I also want to merge the situation of media art and also contemporary art, because for me there shouldn't be this kind of narrow kind of way of thinking what is media art, what is contemporary art, and also what is as I presented, what is so-called this kind of social media funny stuff, whether can be treated as art. I think, it's a very many kind of questions unfolded that maybe we should rethink of, what and not, what is art today, and then maybe what can be art in the future. Yeah. Hito, you want? I think our time is... I think we're done.